James Hale had just finished repairing the irrigation valve behind his cabin when he heard the unmistakable hum of an orbital-grade shuttle descending far too close to his property. New Terra was supposed to be quiet, endlessly quiet, the kind of world where you could disappear into farmland and let the ghosts of old wars fade into the soil. But the craft settling into his wheat field was not quiet, and it was definitely not local. The engines exhaled a shimmering pulse of blue light across the crops, flattening a perfect circle into the ground. James shielded his eyes, pulse stumbling as he recognized the insignia painted along the hull. The crest of the Velarith Dominion. He hadn't seen that symbol in 12 years, not since the war, not since Coravan Ridge, not since. The ramp extended with ceremonial precision. He remembered all too well. 3 armored guards emerged first, their movement fluid and predatory, followed by a 4th figure in elegant obsidian robes. The fabric shimmered like liquid starlight, shifting with patterns that were unmistakably royal. James swallowed. Royal Velarith never left their homeworld, not for diplomats, and definitely not for retired human engineers pretending to be farmers. "James Hale," the robed figure announced, voice soft but resonant. "By decree of the Celestial Court, you are summoned to appear before Her Radiant Majesty, Queen Seralyth Vael." James froze. That name, that impossible name. He had heard it only once, spoken by a delirious, dying soldier whose blood he'd been desperately trying to keep inside her body. A young Velarith commander, trapped beneath collapsed crystal architecture, her breaths growing weaker even as he ignored the retreat order in his comms and kept working. He wasn't supposed to help her. He had done it anyway. And she had survived, or someone had. "I think you have the wrong man," James managed, wiping dirt from his hands out of nervous habit. "I'm just a mechanic. Your service record contradicts that." The envoy's golden eyes narrowed. Her Majesty was explicit. "You are to be escorted safely and with honor." Honor, right. Humans didn't get honor from the Velarith unless something was very, very wrong. James took a slow breath. "Can I ask why the Queen wants to see me?" The envoy paused long enough that James recognized hesitation. "Her Majesty will speak for herself, but the matter is personal." That word twisted something low in his stomach. The guard stepped aside, forming a corridor of gleaming obsidian armor, each helmet shaped with the elegant upward sweep characteristic of Velarith aesthetics. Ornamental, beautiful, dangerous. "Please," the envoy said, "there is urgency." He glanced back at his little farm, his porch, his tools, the peaceful anonymity he'd built here piece by piece. 12 years of silence. 12 years of not thinking about the woman he'd carried out of that burning ruin. 12 years of pretending he hadn't memorized the shape of her long ears, the shimmer of her silver-blue skin, the strange warmth of her trembling fingers clutching at his wrist as he stopped the bleeding. He'd assumed she forgot him, or died, or moved on like the rest of the galaxy. Apparently not. James exhaled, grabbed his travel bag, and stepped toward the shuttle. The envoy bowed her head respectfully. "Her Majesty will be relieved." Relieved? Why? The question followed him up the ramp, through the metallic scent of recycled air, into the velvet-lined cabin designed for dignitaries, not farmers, and stayed with him through the entire ascent into the sky. Only when the shuttle broke atmosphere did the envoy finally add, "The Queen has waited a very long time to speak with you." James's heartbeat stuttered, because suddenly he knew, deep in the quiet, private place where memories never fully died, that the woman he saved wasn't just any Velarith officer. She had been Princess Seralyth Vael, heir to the Dominion, and he had left her without ever learning her name. He stared out at the stars as the shuttle set course for the royal homeworld, an old true. James barely slept during the 4-day transit to Velarith Prime. The shuttle was quiet, the crew respectful, the quarters almost luxurious, but none of it helped. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw a collapsing crystalline tower, ash drifting through alien light, and a silver-blue woman struggling to breathe beneath the wreckage. He had held her trembling hand. He had whispered, "Stay with me." And he had walked away without ever knowing her fate. Now he was being taken directly to her. The shuttle pierced the atmosphere of Velarith Prime with a violet shimmer. The world below wasn't built. It was sculpted, alive, luminescent. Cities grew like glowing coral reefs, their crystalline architecture bending light into soft rainbows. Floating walkways spiraled between towers. Ether vines, bioluminescent tendrils, drifted in the wind like living lanterns. James pressed a hand to the window. Even after all these years, the Velarith aesthetic stunned him. So elegant, so deliberate, nothing wasted, nothing accidental. The envoy approached, her expression gentle. Her Majesty has prepared a private audience. You will meet her shortly after landing. He nodded, throat suddenly dry. The landing platform extended beneath them like a glass petal. Guards in ceremonial armor lined the path, their pauldrons shaped like polished obsidian wings. They weren't here as a show of force. They were here because this meeting mattered. The envoy guided him through a high-arched corridor that hummed faintly with psionic resonance. Velarith structures always did that, like the walls themselves remembered history. When the doors opened into the private audience chamber, James felt his breath catch. The room glowed with soft silver light from thousands of floating crystals, and standing before a cascade of drifting ether vines was her, Queen Seralyth Vael. Her long, pointed ears framed a face as breathtaking as he remembered, noble, fierce, devastatingly beautiful. Her skin shimmered in subtle hues of silver and amethyst. Luminescent markings traced elegant lines across her collarbones, pulsing softly with each breath. She turned toward him, and her golden eyes, impossibly bright, locked onto his. For a moment, neither of them spoke. James felt something inside him buckle. She wasn't the frightened officer he'd carried out of a burning ruin. She was a queen now, powerful, composed, radiant in ways that made his chest ache. But her eyes were exactly the same. "James Hale," she said quietly. Her voice was melodic, deeper than he remembered, layered with command and something softer. "You truly came." He bowed awkwardly. His human joints didn't allow for the deep Velarith inclination, but she didn't seem offended. "Your Majesty," he managed. "I wasn't aware anyone remembered me." A faint shift in her markings indicated emotion, relief, longing, something dangerously close to vulnerability. "I remembered you every day," Seralyth said. The words hit him with the force of a pulse blast. She stepped closer, not fully closing the distance, just enough that the air seemed to tighten. James could feel the warmth radiating from her skin, smell the faint crystalline scent of Velarith aura fields. 15 years ago," she continued softly, "you stayed in a burning structure when every tactical protocol told you to flee. You held my life between your hands. I never forgot your face." He swallowed hard, pulse hammering. "I didn't even know your name," he admitted. Seralyth's lips curved in a faint, bittersweet smile. "I was not yet queen. I had no right to ask for gratitude or farewells or anything." She paused, gaze flicking briefly to his hands, the same hands that saved her. "But I made a vow that day. If I lived, I would find you." James's heart twisted. He had imagined this moment 1,000 different ways, every version ending with her having long forgotten him. He never once imagined she'd been searching. "Why?" he whispered. Seralyth exhaled slowly, her gaze dropping for the briefest moment, something no Velarith royal ever did unless an emotion was too strong to suppress. "Because you changed the trajectory of my life," she said, "and because I owe you more than an empire can repay." A soft hum filled the chamber as her aura brightened. "And because," she added, voice barely above a breath, "there are things I wished to say to you then, but never had the chance." The space between them felt electric, alive, pulling them closer in a way that felt both forbidden and inevitable. James forced himself to breathe. "Your Majesty, Seralyth, what do you want from me?" She lifted her eyes to his, and for the first time the queen's composure truly slipped. "I want you to stay," she said. James froze. The word struck deeper than anything before. "I want your counsel, your honesty, your presence." She hesitated, the glow along her cheekbones flickering. "I want the man who saved me to stand at my side as I try to prevent the Empire from falling into war." He stared at her, this unstoppable, luminous queen who somehow looked at him like he mattered. "Seralyth," he said carefully, "I'm not a diplomat." "No," she whispered, stepping a fraction closer. "You're better." Her aura reached him, warm, tingling, almost intimate in its gentleness. "You're honest," she said, "unafraid to do what is right, and you see people, not empires." Her gaze locked onto his, unguarded and devastating. "I have waited 15 years to stand before you again. Don't ask me to let you walk away now." James felt the weight of destiny, of history, of something deeply personal pulling him toward her. And for the first time since the war, he wasn't sure whether the danger he felt was political or emotional. The private audience chamber felt too small for the silence that followed. Seralyth stood barely a step away from him, luminous markings faintly glowing, her breath steady but charged. James had seen battlefield tension, death row calm, even the quiet terror in a patient's eyes before sedation, but nothing felt like this. A queen staring at him as if the galaxy had stopped spinning. He forced himself to inhale. "I don't understand what you expect from me." Seralyth's gaze softened, but her voice remained steady. "I expect nothing. I only ask for a chance to show you why your presence here matters." She motioned for him to walk with her through an arched crystal doorway that opened into a quiet interior garden. Moonlight, Velarith had 3 moons, filtered through drifting ether vines, bathing the space in soft violet hues. It was impossibly serene for a place that belonged to an empire on the brink of political fracture. Seralyth led him beneath an arch of shimmering petals that responded to her proximity. "They recognize you," she said. James blinked. "The flowers recognize me. Not you specifically." Her lips curved faintly. "They respond to intent. You carry no aggression. They open for gentleness." He didn't know what to do with that, so he said nothing. Silence stretched, soft but fragile. "You saved my life, James Hale," she continued quietly. "But the repercussions echoed farther than you know." He tilted his head. "Repercussions." Seralyth stopped before a floating crystal fountain. The water defied gravity, drifting upward in spiraling forms before dissolving into sparkles of light. "When I survived Coravan Ridge, I was expected to return to the front lines." Her voice lowered, yet something changed in me. For the first time, I questioned the necessity of the war, the brutality of our methods, the blindness of our leaders. Her gaze swept the garden, distant and haunted. I should not have questioned, but I did. And piece by piece, those questions shaped the path that led me to this throne. James took a slow step toward her. "Are you saying I made you queen?" "No," she said gently. "You reminded me that compassion is a weapon, too." That hit harder than he expected. But before he could speak, a soft chime sounded, an alert. One of the crystalline walls shifted, displaying a hovering sigil. Seralyth's expression tightened at once. "What is that?" he asked. "A demand," she murmured. "From the Council of Lineages, they want an audience." She paused, adding bitterly, "About you." His stomach dropped. "Already. They have been preparing for this ever since I sent the first order to locate you." Her jaw tightened. "They do not trust humans, and they do not trust my judgment where you are concerned." That last part carried more weight than she admitted. James absorbed the information in silence. "I don't want to cause trouble for you." Her gaze snapped to his bright, sharp. "You are not the cause, you are the excuse." Her markings flared, revealing emotion she usually hid. "James, when I searched for you, they assumed the worst. They believe I am compromised, that I act from personal sentiment rather than strategic clarity." He blinked. "Sentiment." She looked away too quickly. He stepped closer. "Seralyth, why would they think that?" Her throat moved in a nervous swallow, not a gesture he thought Velarith royalty capable of. "Because I asked them 15 years ago to help me find the human who stayed by my side while I bled into the dust," she whispered. "Because I never forgot your face. Because you haunted my dreams through years of war and peace." The confession punched the air out of his lungs. He stared at her, this impossibly composed queen whose ears trembled in the faintest, betraying motion. "And because," she added even more softly, "I spoke your name during my coronation oath." James's heart stopped. "You what?" Her voice cracked like starlight under strain. "It is an ancient custom. Newly crowned rulers may speak one truth, one personal truth before the empire. I said your name. I said I owed you my life. They never forgot that." James felt the world tilt. He had unknowingly become part of her mythology. "Seralyth," he whispered, "I didn't mean to complicate your rule." She turned toward him, eyes bright and fierce. "You didn't complicate it, you anchored it." He had no answer. For a long moment they simply stood there, moonlight glancing off her skin, the gentle hum of alien flora surrounding them, their breaths nearly synchronized. Then footsteps approached rapidly. A guard bowed deeply. "Your radiance." "The council demands immediate assembly. They question the human's presence." Seralyth's expression darkened, a queen's armor sliding into place. "Tell them the human will attend," she said. The guard hesitated. "Your radiance, they did not request his presence. They requested that he be removed." Seralyth's gaze sharpened dangerously. "He stays. If they wish to challenge my decisions, they will do so in my presence and his." The guard bowed and departed. James shook his head. "You don't need me there. They clearly don't want me." Seralyth stepped close enough he could feel the warmth radiating from her luminous skin, close enough to break him. "I do want you there," she said. Her voice lowered, intimate, almost pleading. You are the only one in this palace who speaks to me without fear. You are the only one who looks at me and sees a person, not a symbol. I cannot face them alone. James swallowed, pulsed. The council hall of Velarith Prime was not built for comfort. It was built to intimidate. The crystalline chamber rose like an inverted cathedral, spires curving inward overhead, humming with psionic resonance. A ring of elevated platforms encircled the center, one for each of the Dominion's great lineages. Their symbols glowed in cold, flickering patterns, shifting an accusation even before James stepped inside. The moment he entered with Seralyth beside him, every platform brightened like dozens of predatory eyes focusing all at once. Whispers rippled through the chamber. A human? She brought him here? Unthinkable, foolish, dangerous. James forced his face neutral, though his stomach tightened. These people weren't like Seralyth, warm, luminous, curious. Their markings glowed in sharp, serrated patterns, their ears angled backward like blades. Even their posture suggested they were carved from crystal and judgment. Seralyth didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice a calm, melodic command. Let the council speak its concerns. A ripple of shifting light answered. From the platform of the first lineage descended an elder with pale, angular features and markings that pulsed a stern crimson. Your Radiance, he said with a bow that was respectful in shape only. We question the necessity and the wisdom of resurrecting ties to the human who nearly cost our empire its rightful vengeance 15 years ago. James blinked. Vengeance? Seralyth's jaw tightened. Explain. The elder's gaze slid to James like a blade. When the princess was trapped beneath the ruins of Coravan Ridge, human forces were closing in. Had she died, her martyrdom would have united our fractured command and hardened our resolve to strike decisively. Instead, he spread his hands. She was saved by an alien with misplaced ethics. A single human medic prevented the rallying cry we needed. His interference prolonged the conflict. James felt the accusation hit like a physical blow. Seralyth's markings flared violently. You would prefer I had died. It would have served the Dominion. Her voice dropped to lethal silence, and my survival served peace. The chamber stirred in uncomfortable motion. Another counselor spoke, this one from the House of Seralyth, voice soft but cutting. Your Radiance, the concern is not merely historical. You sought this human personally. You dispatched fleets to locate him. You cited his name during your coronation oath. James stiffened, so they did know. Seralyth didn't deny it. I spoke a truth, a vow of gratitude. Gratitude is one thing, the elder snapped. Obsession is another. James felt the room tilt. Seralyth took a step forward, instinctively protective. Take care with your words. We question your judgment, the elder said coldly, and we question the human's influence. All eyes turned to James. He felt like he was standing naked on a cliff during a storm, but if he stayed silent, he'd confirm their fears, so he spoke. I didn't come here to influence your empire, James said, voice steady. I came because your queen asked for honesty, and honesty is all I can offer. There were murmurs. The counselors didn't like the sound of that word. James continued. 15 years ago, I didn't save your commander because of politics. I didn't care about battle lines. I saw a wounded person who would have died without help. Where I come from, that's reason enough. The room quieted. I'm not a threat. I'm not here to manipulate your queen. I don't even understand your customs well enough to manipulate a teacup. A few counselors bristled, but others exchanged restrained, reluctant glances. The elder's gaze sharpened. You speak as if compassion supersedes duty. James met his gaze. In my profession, it does. And if your compassion weakens our queen. Seralyth stepped forward before James could respond. His compassion strengthened me, she said fiercely. I questioned the war because of him. I rejected bloodshed because of him. And I ascended the throne determined never to let my people spill blood unnecessarily again. Her voice rose, echoing through the crystalline hall. If the council believes that mercy is weakness, then they misunderstand both leadership and survival. Her aura flared, bright, luminous, impossible to ignore. But let me be clear, she said. The decision to bring him here was mine. The vow I made was mine. If the council seeks to challenge my authority. We do not challenge your authority, the elder interrupted. We challenge his proximity. James felt every gaze sharpen. What proximity? Seralyth asked slowly, and then betrayal struck. A counselor projected holographic surveillance onto the central crystalline dais. Images of the two of them walking together in the moonlit garden. standing close. Her hand extended toward his fingers brushing hers, the warmth in her gaze, the unguarded expression. Gasps echoed around the chamber. Seralyth inhaled sharply, her markings flickering in shock, fury, and something dangerously like fear. The elder spoke with icy precision. You have breached emotional neutrality, your radiance. You bond too easily. You seek out the human not for political necessity, but for personal longing. Silence crashed into the hall. James's breath caught. Seralyth froze, and the elder delivered the strike. We demand a right of inspection of your mind and your emotional field to determine whether this human has compromised your judgment. James stepped forward instantly. You're not touching her. Dozens of weapons shifted toward him, humming with lethal charge. Seralyth's hand lifted barely, but all weapons ceased. She stared at him, eyes wide with something raw. He realized too late what he had just revealed: instinct, protectiveness, attachment. The chamber felt like a breaking star. The elder's voice sliced through the tension. Your behavior confirms our concerns. Seralyth exhaled, slow, steady, resigned. Very well, she said. If a right of inspection is demanded, I will submit to it. James's heart plummeted. Seralyth, no. She turned to him, and for the first time her expression was not a queen's. It was a woman's. It's the only way to protect you, she murmured. They believe you hold influence over me. If I refuse, they will exile you, or worse. The right of inspection chamber lay deep beneath the palace, carved into living crystal older than the Dominion itself. It was quiet, not peaceful quiet, but the suffocating kind that presses against your lungs. James followed Seralyth through winding corridors lit only by faint violet pulse lines in the walls, each beat echoing like a distant heartbeat. 2 honor guards flanked the entrance. Their weapons were ceremonial, but James knew enough about Velarith technology to understand ceremonial didn't mean harmless. Seralyth paused before stepping inside. This will not harm me, she said softly, almost convincing. But it will expose what I feel. The words tightened something sharp in James's chest. Seralyth, if they see anything. Her gaze met his, steady, luminous, unbearably gentle. Then let them see, she whispered. She stepped inside before he could argue. James wasn't permitted to follow. They stopped him at the threshold. One guard lifted a clawed hand. No further, human. James clenched his fists. She asked me to be here. You may wait outside, the guard said, unmoving. But the right is for Velarith royalty alone. Her mind is sacred territory. He wanted to argue, to push past them, to tear down the damn door if he had to. But Seralyth turned, and the look in her eyes anchored him in place. She wasn't afraid, she was determined. Please, she said softly, wait for me. The door slid shut with a crystalline sigh, and James was left alone in a hallway built for giants, lit by the glow of an empire that did not trust him. He paced like a caged animal. Minutes passed, then hours. He lost track of time except for the pounding in his chest. What if they hurt her? What if they pried too deep? What if they found? He swallowed hard. It wasn't just her emotions at risk. It was his. Because somewhere between Coravan Ridge and this palace of impossible beauty, he had crossed an invisible threshold. He had started caring in a way that wasn't supposed to happen. Caring in a way that Terrans never did for Velarith. Caring in a way that could get them both destroyed. The doors hissed open so suddenly he jolted. Counselors emerged first, their faces unreadable, their markings dim with exhaustion. Whatever they had seen or felt had drained them. Then Seralyth stepped out. James froze. She looked changed, stronger, brighter, and somehow unbearably fragile at the same time. Her aura shimmered like liquid gold around her, brighter than he'd ever seen. It pulsed with an emotional resonance he didn't understand, but felt all the way to his bones. Seralyth, he breathed. She only shook her head slightly and extended a hand to him. He took it without hesitation. The counselors watched silently. The elder stepped forward, voice cold as fractured crystal. The rite has revealed that the Queen holds genuine emotional alignment toward you, human. Powerful alignment. James's breath left him. Seralyth didn't deny it. The elder's gaze sharpened. But it also revealed that the human. Seralyth cut in sharply. That part of the rite's findings is sealed by sovereign privilege. The counselor stiffened. That is highly irregular. Yet within my rights. Her voice radiated command. Undebatable, unbreakable. The elder's jaw tightened, but he bowed. As you will, your radiance. The council withdrew like a tide receding, silent, uneasy, withholding judgment for another day. Only when the last of them was gone did Seralyth's shoulders finally drop. The light in her markings dimmed from fierce gold to something quieter, more intimate. "James," she whispered, "walk with me." He followed her to a secluded balcony overlooking the capital. Night wrapped the city in shimmering violet, and floating lanterns drifted among the towers like wandering stars. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Seralyth exhaled, a tremor in the sound. They saw everything. His stomach twisted. "Your memories of Coravan Ridge." "And my feelings," she said barely above a breath. "Though not all, only the ones I allowed." He hesitated. "And what did you allow?" Her gaze lifted to him, open, unmasked. "The truth." James's heart slammed against his ribs. She stepped closer, so close he could feel the hum of her aura brushing his skin. "They saw that I searched for you for years," she said softly. "That gratitude became curiosity, curiosity became longing, and longing," she swallowed, golden eyes bright and vulnerable. "Longing became something I have no word for." His breath hitched. "Seralyth." Her fingers brushed his wrist, slow, deliberate, trembling. "They saw my heart," she whispered, and then her voice cracked. "But they did not see yours because I protected it." James's pulse roared in his ears. "Why?" He rasped, "Because whatever you feel or do not feel is yours to choose, not theirs to weaponize." Silence draped over them like silk. A long, shivering moment passed. James didn't know how to speak, or breathe, or function. Seralyth finally looked away, staring out over the glowing city with a sadness that carved into him like a blade. "I do not expect anything from you," she murmured. "Not affection, not loyalty, not a place at my side. I brought you here for counsel, for truth, not for personal attachment." A lie, a beautiful, necessary lie. He stepped closer, not touching, just close enough that the air between them shifted, warmed. "Seralyth." She didn't turn. "You should know," he said quietly, "that whatever the right found in you, it wasn't one-sided." Her hands tightened on the railing. Slowly, slowly, she turned to him, golden eyes searching. The alarm's echo hadn't faded before Velarith Prime erupted into coordinated chaos. Crystal barriers unfolded across the palace walls. Ether conduits activated with a deep, resonant hum. Guardian squadrons streaked across the night sky like silver comets. Seralyth's demeanor shifted instantly, no trembling, no hesitation. She wasn't the woman who had just confessed fragile truths. She was the queen of the Dominion. "James," she said sharply, "stay with me." She moved, swift and purposeful, leading him through rising shield walls and psionic pathways that illuminated beneath her steps. He kept pace, adrenaline burning through him, though he had no idea what waited ahead. "What's happening?" he asked. Seralyth didn't slow. "A foreign fleet crossed our border line, no identification. Their energy signature doesn't match any known nation. So pirates, mercenaries." Her jaw tightened. "No, something worse, someone who benefits from destabilizing my rule." James stiffened. "The council." Her silence was enough answer. They entered the strategic chamber, an oval space with floating crystalline panels projecting tactical scans of the planet. Violent violet pulses marked breach points. Her generals snapped to attention. "Your Radiance, we intercepted encrypted transmissions." The attacking vessels were supplied by elements of the Ninth Lineage, a political coup under disguise. James felt anger spike. "They would risk a planetary attack just to unseat you." Seralyth didn't look at him, but her voice sharpened. "They would risk the Dominion itself before allowing a queen they consider emotionally compromised to command it." A general approached. "Your Radiance, we must evacuate you to a secure bunker." "No," Seralyth stepped forward. "We defend the capital from here. They expect fear. They will receive steel." James touched her arm, instinct overriding protocol. "Seralyth, if they're trying to overthrow you, you can't be directly in the line of fire." She met his gaze for a heartbeat, when he felt in his ribs. "I will not hide," she said softly. "Not when the anger aimed at me may endanger my people." The room pulsed with tension. A violent tremor rocked the chamber. Crystals overhead vibrated. James grabbed the edge of a projection pillar to steady himself. Seralyth turned to her generals. "Prepare counterfire, redirect shield matrix to the southern arc, and bring up the resonance cannons." She was magnificent, commanding, luminous, terrifyingly beautiful under crisis. James felt something fierce and protective rise in him. Then her gaze flicked to him. "James," she said quietly, "stay close." He wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her he wasn't a combat engineer anymore, that he was far out of his depth, that he shouldn't even be here. But then, the wall exploded. A blast of purple-white force tore through the chamber, sending shards of crystal spraying in every direction. Generals went flying. The command table shattered. James hit the floor, coughing, ears ringing. Through the smoke stepped figures, Velarith, but armored in off-lineage regalia. Rebels. Their leader aimed a spear-like energy weapon straight at Seralyth. "Your radiance," he sneered. "Your reign ends tonight." James didn't think, he moved. Instinct, training, memory. He slammed into Seralyth, pushing her out of the weapon's trajectory as the blast cracked the crystal floor where she had stood. They rolled across the ground, sparks raining over them. The rebel advanced again, but Seralyth rose with a movement so fast it blurred. Her aura flared gold, her markings ignited in brilliant lines. She unleashed a psionic blast that threw the rebels back like rag dolls. James stared. He had never seen her fight. She wasn't graceful. She was devastating. The rebels regrouped for a second strike. But the palace guards stormed the chamber, weapons glowing, cutting off their advance. The leader shouted a retreat order. They vanished in a flash of phase light. Seralyth didn't chase them. She stood perfectly still, chest rising and falling with controlled fury. James pushed himself upright, wincing. "You okay?" She turned sharply, and suddenly the queen's armor cracked, revealing the woman underneath. "You shielded me," she whispered. He almost laughed. "You said to stay close." She stepped toward him, and this time, there was no counts, no surveillance, no political witness, no reason to hide. Her hand lifted to his cheek, trembling. "You could have died." "So could you. I am trained for battle." He swallowed. "I'm trained for saving the people who matter." Silence slammed into the room. Seralyth's breath stuttered. Her markings flickered like breaking starlight. Her golden eyes softened into something vulnerable and impossibly deep. "James," she whispered, voice unsteady. "The council saw my emotions, but they did not see yours." "No," he said gently, "because you shielded me." A tear, luminescent, shimmering, gathered at the corner of her eye. Velarith royalty didn't cry, ever. "Why?" she breathed. He stepped closer, closing the final, fragile distance between them. "Because what I feel isn't something they get to decide," he said quietly. "And it's not something they get to weaponize." Her lashes fluttered, her breath hitched. "And what do you feel, James Hale?" He lifted a hand, brushing his thumb along her jawline, slow, uncertain, reverent. "The truth," he murmured. "The same truth they found in you." Her eyes widened. Hope, disbelief, a breaking gasp. Then she leaned into his touch, closing her eyes for a heartbeat too long. And the entire Dominion seemed to exhale. But before either could speak, a general approached with a bow. "Your Radiance, the rebel fleet is withdrawing. The coup has failed." Seralyth straightened, not pulling away from James's hand, but covering it briefly with her own. Then she faced her people with fire in her gaze. "This day will be remembered," she said, and her voice sounded stronger than any queen before her. James watched her. This woman he had carried from rubble, this queen he had come to care for without permission or plan, and felt something shift inside him. Not destiny, not obligation, choice. When the chamber cleared, when the crisis settled into reports and casualty lists, she turned to him again, silent, searching, luminous. "What happens now?" he asked softly. Seralyth stepped closer. "We rebuild," she said, her hand found his, "and we decide what we